Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon and today I'm back to tell you about 26 books that are coming out in 2026 that I am super duper excited about. So in some ways this is a 26 in 2026 video because they're 26 books that I would like to get to. In some ways this is kind of a 5-star predictions video, and in some ways this is also gonna sort of link to some intentions that I have for reading, although they're less intentions and more just kind of things I'd quite like to do. I have not made a reading or channel intentions video this year, and that's just because overall really I just want to see how the year goes and fly by the seat of my pants a bit, I guess. I have all of the books here. There are lots of other books that I am really excited for this year, but what this will also be is the start of a series that I want to do possibly every quarter, because actually one thing that I asked you all about last year was book hauls and how you felt about them, and lots of you said that you really enjoyed them, and that's great, but the reoccurring theme within that was it's really nice to know when books are coming out, and also pre-orders really matter. So if I can mention books that I'm excited about that you might all be excited about too more than once in advance, that's only a good thing. Also means you can get ahead early with your library borrowing too. I'm doing these in month order and we are going all the way to June. We have some very exciting times ahead reading wise, but I did just want to do 2 tiny little cheats.
And that is because as I am filming this, it's the 10th of January, but this is going to go live towards the end of the month because I'm trying to record in advance and be more on it, and so you'll get more regular routine content. Not routine, that sounds quite boring. I want this year to be a lot more fun, but anyway.
I should have read 2 books that I would otherwise be mentioning. Palaver by Bryan Washington, whose previous novels I've absolutely loved. This is about a mother and son in Japan, and they haven't seen each other for a while, and it looks at the tensions between the two. The son is also having an affair with a married man. Lots going on here. Very excited for an event that I'm doing with Bryan at West Kirby Bookshop, which could be about to happen as this goes live, or I could have done as this goes live, and the same applies to Chosen Family by Madeleine Gray, as I'm doing an event with her at the end of this month at Queerlit in Manchester, and I've heard amazing things about this. I heard lots of raves about her debut Green Dot, but people saying this is even better, and I'm here for queer fiction, which both of these are, but also Australian fiction as well. I need to make sure I'm back on Australian fiction a lot more, but yeah, so these 2 I should have read or will be reading by the time this goes live, so I didn't want to include those, but officially starting with the 26 now proper.
Books that I'm super duper excited for, that I won't have read by the time this goes live, I'll be reading.
This will have not long been out, so it's out in 2026, so it's one to look forward to. You can see it anyway, I've been sort of holding it up. The Hill in the Dark Grove by Higginson, and I'm excited for this for many a reason. One, it is set in North Wales, which is somewhere that I love deeply, and I would like to get to books set in places that I'm a big fan of, whether I've been to them or not. But North Wales is somewhere that I go to regularly because it's not very far from me, and I just really love it there. And it's about a husband and wife, and they have moved into a farm or inherited it quite recently, one or the other.
For those of you who are new, I don't always like to know too much about a book before I go in because I kind of just want to get lost in the story, but...
As I was saying, this husband and wife, they move into this farmhouse, and the husband kind of becomes slightly obsessed with a stone circle outside and starts to change. And that, to me, it just sounds brilliant. This hasn't come out yet and won't have come out yet as this video goes live, because it'll be out the last week of January, as will the 3rd and final choice from January. How many times can I say January? A lot, and I'm holding it up and you're seeing it anyway. This is a proof of Belgrave Road by Manish, Chauhan, and this is mainly about Mira, I believe, who's come to live in the UK as part of an arranged marriage, and it's how she comes to terms with her life in this new country and the family that she's been brought into, but also how there is a spark between her and another man she works with. And what intrigues me about all of this is, one, it's got savage catnip in it, which is, I love books about that moment when different cultures come together through certain characters or certain situations, and so this very much has that. Also, it's set in Leicester, which I don't think I've ever read a book set in, and is where my dad lives, so that intrigues me. all the more. Very intrigued for this one. Last but certainly not least, in terms of books coming out in January, because there are some on the shelves that I am intrigued for. I just had to really whittle this down. We have an author who I've read all 3 of their previous books, and I'm very excited for this one. It's Elisa Shua Dusapin's The Old Fire, translated by Anessa Abbas Higgins. And this is about 2 sisters, and they are reunited after having not spoken. Well, one of them hasn't spoken for many, many years, but they fell out several decades ago and their father has died, so they are sorting out the house in which he lived. And as they do, old memories and resentments apparently come to the fore. It's also, I've heard, and I've not heard too much about it because when it's an author that I love, I try to go and know very little, but apparently it has fairy tale vibes, which I am intrigued for. Also, must head to more translated fiction this year. That is definitely a plan of mine. Now, in February, I have picked 4 books off my shelf. The first of those is Fire in Every Direction, a memoir by Tareq Baconi, and all I needed to hear about this to want to read it was the quote from Sarah Schulman, which says, "A powerful memoir of queer and Palestinian reckoning." And that to me sounds like a book that we should all be reading. Really, really intrigued for this. And yeah, want to get to that soon. Also, really keen to read a lot more queer non-fiction in particular this year. I had a phase of reading a lot more non-fiction a few years ago and then sort of stopped for a while, and I want to get back on the non-fiction bus or plane or whatever form of transport you want to use as an analogy. Let's all move swiftly on. Then we have, and I will put a finished cover once I've held this one up, but we have Lean Cat, Savage Cat by Lauren J. Joseph. This is about Charlie, who ends up going to see a band performing, I think, and becomes besotted with the guitarist. We've all been there. And she follows him to Berlin, and there's a quote on the back that says, "The talented Mr. Ripley for contemporary Berlin, a story of obsession and excess, doppelgangers and disassociation, fame and the terrible things we do to feel loved." I've heard it's quite salacious too, and yeah, just really, really looking forward to it. Also, the finished cover is absolutely stunning, and this would be a perfect pick for February's Savage reading prompt, which is the word savage. So spelt the wrong way, not the right way, but still. Then we have a book that has already been out in the US and possibly Australia, I think, but is finally coming out in the UK in February. It won the National Book Award. It is The True Story of Raja the Gullible and His Mother by Rabih Alameddine, and this intrigues me as it opens in an apartment block in Beirut where a man who is known as the neighbourhood homosexual is sharing this small apartment with his mother. However, he gets invited to America and we follow him and possibly his mother, I'm assuming. But yeah, I hadn't heard about this until it was up for the National Book Award, and then became kind of besotted with the whole idea. There's something about the local neighbourhood homosexuals, which is really, I don't know, made me want to head to it. Also, it's got cats on the cover, so there we have that. And then we have a short story collection, and I want to get better at actually reading the short story collections that I own. And one such book is the last book that I want to mention from February, which is The Age of Calamities by Senaa Ahmad. And this has a brilliant picture of Anne Boleyn on the cover, and that is because in one of the stories, well, there's a few stories it gives insight into on the back, and it says, the Romanov sisters learn to time travel, Joan of Arc dabbles in demonic possession, and Anne Boleyn's head is back where it belongs. I love Anne Boleyn. She is one of my all-time queens, and that links us nicely into the first book that I'm going to mention that's coming out in March, and it is The Beheading Game by Rebecca Lehmann. It says Disgraced, Beheaded, Revived. And this, sorry, I'll show you the side. In fact, actually, I'll put the finished edition there. But this is about Anne Boleyn coming back. After she has been executed, she decides that she's not done. And so she sews her head back on and decides it's time for revenge. That's all I need to know. I think this sounds amazing. and I can't wait, frankly. Also, this hot pink is never leaving publishing now, is it? It arrived, I think, a couple of years ago, and it's firmly here to stay. Now, March is a bumper month, so we've got quite a few to get through, including, I'm very, very excited for this, there's quite a few authors whose work I really, really love that that have got books coming out. And one thing that I really want to do this year is to stop saving books for rainy days and just get on and read them. So I will be heading to this very soon. It is A Short Road to Longbrook by Bethan Roberts, who wrote My Policeman. I also loved her book Graceland, which me and Melanie did for one of our book clubs. I will link that video down below if I remember. And also Mother Island. She's just, I think, a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant author. This is all about mothers and daughters, and says on the back, well, a tender story of mothers, daughters, and breaking family patterns from the author of bestseller My Policeman. I've still not seen the film of My Policeman, you know, but at some point I will do. I don't want to know too much more. I could open the cover to find out more, but I'm not going to, because when it's an author whose work I have really enjoyed before, I kind of just want to go in knowing as little as possible and be taken on a journey by them. So looking forward to seeing where Bethan Roberts takes me with this. Then we have, and this sounds like it's going to be incredible, this is The Delusions by Jenny Fagan. I knew nothing about this before I got it, other than it was written by Jenny Fagan, whose writing I have absolutely loved. I've still not read Ootlin, to my shame. That's a non-fiction book I need to get to this year. I really, really, really have loved all of the novels of hers that I've read, and this sounds quite bonkers. So we meet a young woman, I think, who is working in the admin department and has been for several decades, where after people die, they head to there first, and HR have called her in. So we've got all this afterlife stuff going on, but also it seems to have been decided, I don't know who by, and this is where it sounds even more bonkers, that the humans race time is up and somebody else is going to take over. I mean, that just sounds wild. What a wild ride. I will pop a finished cover image there if there is one. Then we have the new novel from Kieran Millwood Hargrave, and it's Almost Life, and this is being described as the sapphic one day, and that has me so intrigued. I love Kieran's writing. I also think she's fabulous, and we'll be in conversation with her actually about this in Manchester on the 26th of March, so very much looking forward to that. Next up, and these might not actually be in technical publishing date order, but we're just going in clumps of months,
because I haven't had a chance to actually go through catalogues to see when exactly what is out, or sort my 2026 shelves into date order quite yet, but we'll get there.
Next up of the books I'm excited for in March is Minor Black Figures by Brandon Taylor, who very randomly I ended up bumping into in an Ollenstein bun shop when me and Mum were having some buns to, soak up our hangovers, frankly, from the night before, because we've been at the Women's Prize finale. But yeah, it was lovely to see him. It was a real treat. I'm very excited to head to his new book, which on the back simply says, and I'll be putting an image, I'm telling myself this more than you because I do have to watch this back and edit, I know, poor me, endlessly. Painter a Priest, One Hot New York Summer. I don't need to know any more than that. That to me is, yeah, enough. Very excited for it. As I am Love Lane by Patrick Gale. Now, if you were a fan of Patrick's novel, A Place Called Winter, which is one of my all-time favourite books, this book is going to be even more exciting to you as a Patrick Gale fan, because Harry Kane is back, and Harry Kane was the protagonist of A Place Called Winter. I don't want to give too much away other than he emigrates, and I believe this is the story of him coming back, and involves Liverpool, which is just over the water from me, so I think I'm going to enjoy it all the more for that too. More queer non-fiction that I'm super duper excited about is coming out in March, and that is Tales of the Suburbs by John Grindrod. LGBTQ plus lies behind net curtains. And whilst I don't think these are necessarily rural settings, when we read about queer lives, they tend to be very city focused. Generally, like, and I could be making a huge, what's the word, thing, not statement, I could make in a huge, not assumption isn't the right word, but you know what I mean. I could be making a huge one of those, but it tends to be like New York, Paris, London. It doesn't tend to be what's going on slightly out of town. And so for that, I'm intrigued to see what John Greenrod has found going on behind the net curtains. Also, that gives like the feeling that we're going to get sort of a super duper nosy insight into it. And so yes, very, very, very excited for this. Now, one of the films that I loved, not last year, the year before, and became actually quite obsessed about was Challenges. That film made tennis so sexy though, and apparently Underspin by E.Y. Zhao is Challenges but make it table tennis. Don't need to know anything more than that. Super duper excited, and actually now want to watch Challenges, frankly, because I loved that film so much. Like, I became mildly obsessed. It became sort of my personality for a while.
Want me to come tuck you in?
I don't know when this is going to be out in the UK, but I was very, very, very lucky to be sent this proof from the author. This is All the World Can Hold by Jung Yun, and I absolutely loved Jung Yun's debut, Shelter. I thought it was fantastic. For some reason, I haven't got to Oh Beautiful, her second novel. I really need to. This is being described as White Lotus if it was set on a cruise ship. I know. I don't feel like anything else needs to be said. That just sounds brilliant. So I'm saying no more. Now, penultimately in March, we have I Am You by Victoria Riddell. And I feel like I have held the finished copy of this up on the channel before, but if I haven't, here's the American edition, which is one of the books from Sarah Jessica Parker's imprint, SJP Lit. I have been so excited for this, and indeed asked for this as one of my Christmas presents. Little did I know that the proof was going to arrive before Christmas, because it is coming out here from Firefinch, which I think is a new publisher. If not, I feel like it's maybe a new imprint. I haven't heard from them before, but very excited for this. This is set in the 1600s in Amsterdam, and it's about a female artist, and well, there's some sapphic shenanigans that follow. I've just heard incredible, incredible, incredible things, not to put too much pressure on it, about this. So yes, we'll be heading to that in due course. And then
I should have probably held this up earlier, because although there was the Anne Boleyn link between February and March, because yes, we still are on March, but
probably my most anticipated book for March, if I had to pick one, is Tayari Jones' Kin. And this is about two girls who are born, I think, possibly on the same ward, just a couple of days apart. One whose mother, I think, dies, and one whose mother abandons her. And it's how they grow up and how they are almost as close as sisters, but not sisters. And the civil movement is going on in the background, and it just sounds like it's going to be absolutely incredible. I'm sorry if that sounds really vague, but as I mentioned, if it's an author whose work I really, really love, I don't want to know too much. I just want to go in and I just want to get reading and see what journey I'm taking on. But yeah, I think this sounds really, really great. And so I should have said civil rights movement, not the civil movement. I'm intrigued to learn more about the history of that with Tayari Jones at the helm. I just think this is going to be right.
I feel like, well, now I feel like I'm putting too much pressure on it, but I think this could be one of my absolute favourite books of the year.
Speaking of favourite authors, one of those whose book is coming out in April, because we're switching to April now, and they have 2 books in April so far.
And this is why I would like to do this as kind of a series, because as the weeks go on, more books will arrive, but also I'm going to properly go through the catalogues at some point.
This is My Year in Paris with Gertrude Stein by Deborah Levy, which sounds like it should be non-fiction, but it is a fiction. It says so right there. There it is. And I really, really love Deborah Levy's writing. And this is set in Paris, and it's about women who know Gertrude Stein, or get to know Gertrude Stein. And I think we see her through these fictional women's eyes, and it sort of reads like true history, I'm guessing. I don't know, haven't read it yet, but very, 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 very intrigued too. And then a debut that I'm so excited about that's coming out in April is Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. This proof, I think they've done something so brilliant, because it's like it's been, well, it has sort of been torn, but yeah, I don't know, there's something about that I just love. And this sounds quite a tricksy, twisty kind of novel, because we meet a woman whose name I have forgotten, Natalie, and she is living the perfect life, it would appear. and she is on socials, and what people don't know is that there's a lot of people helping her to create what seems to be the perfect life. However, one day she wakes up, and while things look familiar, they're really not. And so it sounds like it's got kind of a sci-fi otherly twist to it, and I am just so intrigued for this. Really, really, really excited for it. Now we move on to May, and I had to mention this first because sometimes I've done size order and sometimes I've done by which I'm most excited about. Although in June there's a trio of riches coming in June. But before that, May, we have John of John by Douglas Stewart. So this is about Cal, who has struggled through art school and has not succeeded, so he's having to go back to the island that he grew up on. And when he does, it's all about both the expectation, or actually it's about more than that, I think. It's about the expectation that his family have for him now that he's returned. It looks at how, as a gay man, I don't know whether he's closeted or not, but how he may find someone like him on this small island where everyone knows each other, but also about how he has really changed and yet little in the lives of those on the island he returns to has. So I think it's going to be quite the concoction. I think it's going to be a heady concoction indeed. Then we have Hunger and Thirst by Claire Fuller. Really intrigued for this. This is about two young women who become unlikely friends, I think. And on one day, they play a truth or dare, and one of the dares is for one of the girls to kill someone. And she does. And we go on from there. I think that's going to be quite an intense read. And then last but certainly not least of the books that I picked off the shelves that are coming out in May is One Leg on Earth by Pemi Aguda. And I have been meaning to read Pemi Aguda's short story collection, Ghost Routes, for ages. I think I'm going to try and head to it before I head to this one. This is about Yosoye, who moves to Lagos, and I love books set in and about Nigeria. It's kind of how she finds her feet there, but sort of doesn't, because with them being there for not too long, she realises that she is pregnant. And on the back, it says, all across Lagos, pregnant women are walking into water. Now that sounds a little bit otherly to me. And then on the inside, it says, a vivid, mesmerising story about modern Lagos and the darkness that swirls beneath it. So yeah, I can't work out if this is going to be like fantastical or whether it's going to be much more sort of set in reality. But either way, I've heard amazing things about Pemi's work and really, really, as I said, enjoy books set in and about Nigeria. So yeah, very, very, very excited for this one. I think I will get to Ghost Routes first though. We'll see. Like I said, I'm trying to go more by the seat of my pants, but I do want to get to books set in places that I love, whether I've been to them or not, because I've never been to Nigeria, like I've never been to Australia, but there is something about both those places that really kind of call to me in fiction. I would also really like to read more books set in India. And actually, I know we're talking about books that are coming out this year. I'm really keen to get to some of the books that I missed last year that I was super duper excited about, but also head to a lot more backlist books that I have on these shelves here behind me. But we'll see how I get on, because like I said, it'll be nice to look back on 2026 and just see what happens naturally without me really sort of putting in specific plans and goals and all those kind of things. I'm really trying not to focus on numbers as well this year. But anyway, moving on to June, when three of my absolute most anticipated books are coming out. This is quite the trio. First up, we have Land by Maggie O'Farrell. Now, this is set in the late 1800s, I believe, after the Great Hunger in Ireland, where we meet a father and son who are working on the Ordnance Survey map of Ireland. That just intrigues me in so many ways. So yes, really, really excited for this, as I am the new Joanna Cannon, and this literally arrived this morning, so I am super duper excited about it. It's called An Unlikely Visitor, and it's out in June, like I said, and this is about Margaret, whose husband Derek has recently passed away, and she's coming to terms with being a widower and being alone, and is thinking also about the disappearance of her daughter Jeannie. and then there's a knock on the door and an unlikely visitor arrives and things start to be revealed about what may or may not have happened to Jeannie. I love the way Joanna Cannon, in essence, I think, writes mysteries, but also just does it in these really fascinating insights into people. And I think she makes the ordinary extraordinary in the most brilliant way. So very, very, very excited for this one. As I am, last but certainly not least, There's Only One Sin in Hollywood by Rashid Newson, who wrote My Government Means to Kill Me, which was my favourite book of 2024. Sadly, still doesn't have a publisher in the UK yet. Neither does this, but Rashid very kindly sent me this. And this is all about closeted queer men in Hollywood. And I believe there has been a murder. And so we've got this kind of crime noir thriller that's looking at LGBTQ plus history, and I can't wait. I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. There are some big contenders for favourite book of 2026 already. That's going to make tough decisions come the end of the year, but boy oh boy have I got some thrilling reads ahead of me until then. So there we are. Those are 26 books that are coming out in 2026 that I'm super duper excited for. I'd love to know which of these books you're super duper excited about. Are there any other books that you're aware of coming out in the coming months that you think I would really, really love? And would you like me to make this a regular series, quarterly-ish, let's say? I would love to know that in the comments down below too. I'd love to know what you'd like to see on the channel coming up and anything else. Let's keep chatting. And until next time, I hope we're reading something fab. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.